I'm in the garage today and I'm working on my Honda Aquatrax F12X. I'm going to change out these spark plugs today. If you've never done that before, I'm going to show you how I do that. I'm going to show you the plugs that I use. To start it off, I'm going to show you these plugs right here. I use these NGK laser iridium plugs, and that is part number IMR 9D-9H, or stock number 6544. These specific plugs, I believe, were developed specifically for the Honda Aquatrax. They may fit other vehicles, but I know that it's been maybe discussed that these were made only for the Honda Aquatrax by NGK. So they are a little pricey. They are laser iridium. They do not require you to gap these plugs. And at least that's how I've always installed them. I've had this jet ski for a long time, and I've never gapped these plugs. So I'm going to show you how I go through this process. We'll get this thing started. Before you start any work in this area, I recommend disconnecting your battery because you're going to take these coil packs loose and it could mess up something with the ignition system. So go ahead and take that loose. On mine, I've already taken it loose because the batteries are not installed, and that's because I'm taking these out of winterization. Next, we want to loosen all of these 10mm bolts. I've already loosened those, so I'm going to take these out by hand for you. But take every one of these out, and once we're done with that, then we can start to unplug the coil packs. One tip I'd like to give you is while you take out any bolts or anything, I like to store them kind of right here underneath where the seat goes, and it's got a ledge so nothing can roll back into the engine bay, because if you don't put them somewhere secure, they're going to end up underneath this motor, and then you're really going to hate yourself that you didn't put them somewhere secure so they won't roll out of the way. Another thing you could do is just put a magnetic trace somewhere so it's out of the way and you're not going to drop anything in the engine bay. Make sure that your harness is labeled. If it's not, just make sure they kind of stay in place where each coil pack was. This one is actually labeled, and they're close enough to each coil pack that I don't really have to worry about that I unplugged them all. Now the next step, I only take one coil pack out at a time. That way nothing drops down in here while I'm working on it, and then it lets me know that this one is complete once the coil pack is back in and the bolt is back on. We can remove our first coil pack here, set it out of the way on the back of the seat. You're going to have a 5/8 socket and use one with the rubber insert so you can grab that spark plug out of there. I like to push it down on there and make sure that it is seated, and then I'll put my wrench on the end here and then loosen that spark plug up until you get it to come all the way out. And then sometimes I take the wrench off, and if I can turn this by hand, I'll finish removing the spark plug just by rotating this by hand, and we can pull it up out of there. On my spark plug socket, these spark plugs are a little tight, so I'm actually not going to fully seat onto this end right here where I can tighten it up. All I'm going to do is leave it there where it won't fall. I'm going to hand tighten this so I can still get my socket out of this area, and then that way my socket doesn't get stuck in there. Then I'm going to go with a regular 5/8 to finish that up so that socket will release easier than a spark plug socket. Once I have that hand tight, you're going to get it snug, and then I like to do what I call quarter turn, so you can line yourself up with the motor, go quarter turn, and then I will loosen that back up, make sure it's snug again, and I'll go half of that turn and stop. Now we're ready to put this coil pack back on. Important to make sure that this rubber goes around this edge of the top of the valve cover there. So when you're reinserting that, just kind of make sure that that is seated on there. You're going to take your 10mm, and I like to do that by hand. Just take the socket off your ratchet, turn this in as much as you can by hand, get it snug, and then I'm going to go quarter turn and stop. We're going to repeat that step on spark plug here number 2. Take the coil pack off, make sure you've got your spark plug socket on there. You're going to loosen that up, and then finish taking that out by hand. This is just to make sure you're not cross-threading anything either when you're taking it out or when you're putting it back in. It may be a little bit tough getting them back out by hand, but I always like to do that by hand just to make sure I'm not cross-threading anything. I've got the next spark plug ready, and again, like I mentioned, I'm not fully seated in the socket. I'm just actually letting the rubber hold that plug just so I can get this socket out of there. So rotate that by hand until you can feel a little bit of resistance. Take that back out. Put your regular 5/8 on there. Tighten that by hand until you feel it snug. Take your ratchet wrench. You want to snug that up, and then you want to go quarter turn, and then loosen that back up, snug again, and half of that turn. Now we can put our coil pack back in. Put your 10mm back on there. Tighten that by hand. Get it all the way snug. You're going to go quarter turn. Same on this third coil pack. And pull that all the way out. Same as before, we're just enough in for the rubber to grab. The new spark plug, twist this by hand till you feel the resistance. Change over to your regular 5/8 socket till that's snug. In this case, you're going to have to move your ratchet a little bit to this side so you're not hitting your plastic on this side. So once we got it snug, we're going to go quarter turn starting from here. Loosen that, snug again, and half that distance. Coil pack back in, making sure that that rubber is seated down in there properly. 10mm by hand. Once it's snug, quarter turn. We're on our last coil pack here. Again, you're going to have to turn your wrench to this side so you're not hitting the back plastic seat. That was a little bit tighter in there. And then pull that plug out. Again, barely inserting just so the rubber is grabbing the ceramic on that plug. Get it started hand tight. Feel the resistance, pull the socket out. Go back to your regular 5/8 and twist that till it's completely tight. Then you can take your ratchet, make sure it's snug, go quarter turn, loosen that, snug again, and half that distance. Now we can put this last coil pack back in, put the 10mm bolt in there, hand tight. And then do a quarter turn with your ratchet. Next step, we can plug all of these in. And then we can reconnect the battery. For my application, I got a little bit more to do on this ski, so I don't have the battery in right now, but that would be the last thing you do once you completed these plugs. This finishes up my installation for new spark plugs on a Honda F12X Aquatrax. Hopefully this information was useful or helpful for you, and if it was, please subscribe and share, and that's to the point.